Before a word is spoken, before a shovel turns soil, before the first tear wets the cheek, there is something in the air. It hangs low over these hills, with the mist, with the dawn. It is not seen, but felt. A pulse beneath the earth, a breath shared with ancestors. It is presence. It is memory. It is the sacred rhythm of a people who have not forgotten how to mourn. Among the Luyia of Western Kenya, death is not a sudden stop. It is a slow walk, a carefully choreographed dance between the living and the dead. Here, mourning is not a moment. It is a process, a ritual, a rite. The drums will speak, the fire will burn, the widow will sit in silence, the elders will whisper to the departed. There is a reason for every act, a meaning behind every gesture, a truth tucked between every silence. You will see grief in its rawest form, loud, public, shared. You will see joy return, not in spite of loss, but because of the deep love that loss reveals. These rituals are poetry etched in the soil of tradition. They are sacred acts of remembering, and in remembering, there is healing. Lean in, slow down, listen.
In this podcast episode, I want to get deeper to discussing some of the burial rituals among the Luhya community of Kenya. And specifically, I'm going to be expounding on a very controversial ritual that is burying people with weapons or burying people with a torch or burying people with various items as practiced among the Luhya community of Kenya. Now, a bit of background of this community. This is the second largest community that inhabits the western part of Kenya, and it inhabits 4 counties of western Kenya. This community has a total of about 6 million people, according to the National Census report of 2019. It is the second largest community in Kenya, and it is made up of different sub-tribes, about 17 sub-tribes that speak related but distinct dialects. Now, the work that I'm presenting today is based on a large-scale study that I carried on this community, and I went around this community interviewing elders and bereaved members of the community, adolescents and religious leaders in this community, just to be able to understand some of the funerary practices that they perform when they are burying their people. And I want to focus on burial with a torch or burial with weapons or goods. And before I get to narrowing on the Luhya community, I went around the world to examine how historically different communities have also been burying their people as far as burial with items is concerned. And looking at ancient China, archaeological records actually show that royal people were buried with items such as bronze weapons in the prehistoric times. When we look at Anglo-Saxon communities in Europe, also archaeological evidence is showing graves of people who are buried with weapons in the past. And coming to Africa, in ancient Egypt, we know that pharaohs were buried with various items, including household goods. They were buried with the slaves. they were buried with other royal weapons. And going to West Africa, in Nigeria, again, there is evidence for people in the past having been buried with various items. In South Africa, among the Zulu people, we see soldiers used to be buried with the spears, and these were their tools of work. So this practice of burying people with different items is not just a recent practice. This has coexisted with humanity for so many years. Sometimes we want to understand why would people bury others with weapons or with items, and all this is informed by the worldview and the philosophy that surrounds death in particular communities. For example, when we look at all these communities that we've indicated that are burying people with weapons, with other items, these are communities that believe in the afterworld, life after death. So to them, death is not just a cessation of life, but death is a transition from the physical life to a spiritual life. And when we get to these communities, we tend to see them helping their kin who has died to transition into the next spiritual world. For example, in the ancient Egypt, the pharaohs were buried with servants because they believed that the pharaoh was transitioning to a different world where they are still going to exist, and they will need to be served by the same workers who are serving them in the spirit, in the physical world. And when we look at other communities that are buried people with items, they're actually preparing this person or empowering the spirit to do certain things in the spiritual world. So you can see practice strongly rooted in worldview of life after death that is upheld by these different communities. And so I want you to take me to a journey to the Luyia people of Kenya, and just to try to see what we found out in our research with the community elders. And this research, I interviewed elders from the Tiriki community, the subtribe of Luyia people, the Batsotso tribe, the Bukusu tribe, and also the Banyala tribe. Those are subtribes within the Luyia community. And we will hear the wisdom of elders who are explaining why this ritual and how even the ritual is done, and why is it done, what is the reason behind it, why are the elders of this particular community burying people in this particular style. So specifically I want to look at the why of this ritual of burial with torch or weapons. Now in this community, death is supposed to be natural. People are supposed to be born and then they grow. After growing old, then they die naturally. Now, among the Luyia people, if a death is not natural, and this includes deaths like suicide deaths, deaths by murder, deaths by accident, these deaths are treated differently. But today I want to look at which particular death is associated with burial with weapons. Now, among the Luyia community, if a person dies, they die under mysterious circumstances. Like the death of this person is caused by murder, but the murderer is not known. And so the community cannot trace who exactly killed this person. Then this person is not going to be buried in the normal way that other people are buried. This is the time the community comes together and performs a special burial. The special burial is supposed to help in avenging the death. And the avenging is not done by the community because they do not know the person who killed their kin. So the avenging right is actually handed back to the dead person. So the person is supposed actually to go look for the killers and avenge his death. So in this community, if say a person was killed and the killers cannot be traced, the community would prepare this person for burial in a special way. Usually other members of the community are buried during the day. Several other rituals are done. But when the death is unnatural, that the person who killed this person is not known, then this burial used to be done in the night. And the burial ceremony is not attended by everybody in the community as is with other funerals. In the case of this kind of death, in the night, the body of the person will be taken to the grave, and in the grave, it's not the community members who will bury this person. This person is supposed to be buried by people who are not part of this community. And usually these are people coming from the maternal uncles of the person, because those are believed not to be blood related. That's why the family married from that particular family. So uncles of this person, the deceased person, are called in to come and perform the burial ritual. Now, in the night, all women, all children and young men who are still in child bearing age, they are told to move away from the graveside. They go to the houses, lights are switched off in the compound, and the body is lowered in the grave only by a few elderly people. The only people who are supposed to witness this kind of burial are elders, people who have grown and they are almost the level of qualifying to be ancestors. These are the people who will attend this kind of burial. Now, in the grave, the deceased person is issued with items, and among the Luyia, some of the items that the person would be given are things like spears, a sword, and a torch. Now, the items are handed to the person in a conversation. The uncles will talk to the person who is deceased and give him specific instructions. So the person is actually being instructed to go and look for the killers who are not known by the community and deal with them. The uncles will speak to this person and hand over the torch in one of the hands and a sword in the other hand. Some of the Luyia sub-tribes also use a broom. They give this person a broom. The broom is supposed to be used to sweep away the people who caused the death of this person. The torch is supposed to be used to illuminate the road as the person looks for his killers. And the sword is actually the weapon the person is supposed to use to kill his killers. After this is done, there is a special grass that is also placed on this person. Usually, among the Luyia people are usually buried facing up. But this kind of a person, in some of the Luyia dialects, from the wisdom that we got from the elders, the person is buried facing down, completely different from the way other bodies are buried. This person is buried facing down and is instructed, given masculine terms like, you are a man, you need to go and avenge, do not just sleep in the grave. And then they cover the grave and the normal other things will continue.
Wajomba wa huyu mtu wanaitwa, ndugu zake mama wanaitwa kutoka kwao kuja kumzika huyu mjomba wao, ameuawa. Na wakati watakuja kuzika, watahitaji vitu fulani ambapo watazikwa navyo. Kimoja ni kisu, watamzika hata na tochi, awe anaweza kumulika ile mtu.
Mzee wangu alikufa ajali ya kuuawa na majambazi, na ilikuwa 2001 mwezi wa 8 tarehe 15. Wakati tulitoa mwili tukakuja kuzika, kulikuwa na suspect walijua ndio walikuwa na wazee ndio walifanya hiyo mauaji. Sasa kuna vile walitengeneza mwili, walinunua tochi mpya, wakanunua na sindani ya kushona, vyote vilikuwa mpya, wakanunua na batteries wakaweka kwa torch na wakamweka kwa mkono. Kuna maneno waliongea wakimkabidhi hiyo torch, ilikuwa inawaka. Sasa wakati alikuwa anaelekea kama mwaka moja, mtu wa kwanza alikufa, na ikawa wakafuatana hivyo wakafa karibu wote. Kuna wakati alipewa torch, aliambiwa amulike kila mtu mwenye alimuguza. Sasa wenye walikufa kuna maneno walikuwa nasema, wengine walikuwa nasema hiyo kamati walipangia kwa nyumba yangu, mimi ndio nilipika ugali. Sasa mtu anakufa katika hali ya mwenyewe kuconfess yenye alifanya. Yaani akisha confess na anakufa, akisha confess na anakufa. Alizikwa na wajomba
wa kina mama kutoka kwa mama yake.
Kutoka kwa mama yake ndio walimzika. Tulikuwa tu kwa kaburi, but wakati walikuwa wanamkabidhi hii torch, walikuwa wao peke yao, walikuwa wamejifungia na yeye kwa nyumba peke yao. Sasa sisi familia tulikuwa tu wakati wa kuzika, but hiyo shughuli nyingine ya kuwekea torch walikuwa na yeye kwa nyumba peke yake.
That the terms that are used are masculine. When we went around the communities, we actually found this ritual is mostly performed on men. We've not seen a case where women are buried this way. This is a ritual that is done for men who are killed, and that can help us to understand the power hierarchy in the community in terms of masculinity and femininity. And when I look at this ritual now from different perspectives, first you can see this is a ritual that is enforcing the patriarchal nature of this society, because it's only done on men and it's also done by men. So you can see beyond just the revenge, some of the other things that we are seeing coming out in this ritual are things that reinforce gender roles, things that reinforce patriarchy in this community. We also talk to different people what the perspectives are, and we find the elders of this community really support this ritual. The families of the bereaved really support this ritual.
Sisi huwa tunaimiza vijana ama kizazi cha leo, mkosa mila ni mtumwa. Wache tushike mila yetu, tuzingatie kabisa, ina nguvu yote pamoja. Asante.
Vizazi vya saa hii lazima washikane na wazee. Hata sisi tunaendelea kushika wazee ndio tueneze hii kizazi. Bila hiyo ni ngumu. Na saa hii bila kuangalia kwa wazee ujue walianza wapi, ndio utafika mbali. Lakini ukiwacha wewe ndio utapotea. Kwa sauli mila ni desturi. Mila ni wakikwambia hapa ni mbaya ujue ni mbaya. Wakikwambia hapa ni mzuri ufanye nini? Wakikwambia hii ni laana, usipojihadhari na hiyo laana itakushika tu wewe.
And we stop a bit and look at this ritual from possibly a psychological perspective. When you look at this, you find any family that loses a loved one, it becomes very difficult and traumatic to process this kind of death. And this death can actually become complicated. The grief can become complicated if the family is not getting justice. So one of the ways in which historically this community has helped its people deal with the trauma from controversial deaths like this one is to bury the person with weapons. Now this burial will give reprieve to the family. For example, if I'm the one who is affected and my kin has been killed and I don't know the killers, and I witness this kind of burial, or I'm told that my person has been buried through this kind of burial, right inside me, I'm going to feel relieved. because I know my person will deal with the death themselves. But you can imagine if this is not done. If my person was killed, I don't know the killers, and justice was not served. This can actually complicate the grieving process. So we look at the Luyia community as they perform this kind of ritual. This has very strong psychological connection. We see traditionally psychology playing out here, even though it is assumed psychology was not there in the traditional communities. We can see a very psychological process happening here, because the community is simply transferring the agency of revenge from themselves to the spirit world. It is believing that when you give the person the power, they are going to avenge. And so this helps to reduce the tension that would be carried for a long time. This is a trauma healing practice among this community, because the people will live their life not chasing or remaining with unfinished business about their deceased kin. So when we look at this, we find this ritual serving different purposes to the community. And some of the elders who have spoken, they are saying this does not actually contravene Christianity. But we look at the Christian faith and the pastors and the religious leaders saying, yeah, this is contravening their faith. And so what do we do at this point? We leave this to the individual mourners, the individual families, the people who have lost their bereaved person through this kind of death. They are the only ones who can decide whether this ritual serves them well or not. I have also interviewed some other psychologists who are commenting on this kind of ritual.
My name is Dr. Leonida Makila. I'm a counseling psychologist and a mental health advocate. I'm glad to be here and be able to talk about issues of grief.
How does these rituals help in?
When people lose their loved ones, it is very traumatic, and trauma is a wound in somebody's heart or soul. And people feel so disconnected with the person they have lost. There's some kind of mental distress and void in their lives, and it shatters their sense of belief and trust and even talking. So they don't know how to express what they are feeling through words, and so they engage in rituals. And so the rituals that are performed during loss, they help one to be able to express their emotions, or it's an outlet for emotional expression. Again, for example, like when they participate in the 40 days, after the burial, people are coming back. It's a way of a shared experience. They want to remember and connect with the person they lost. So it brings together a sense of communal sharing, and it connects them back to the person they lost. Another way the rituals help, in grief, is they give somebody stability, that mental stability, so that people cannot go down. When we have people around them and they are helping them go through the rituals they need to go through, you find that it gives them that mental stability. And most important, I think it is just giving them the meaning back to life again, because loss brings a lot of hopelessness. Again, just to realize that, okay, this person has not really gone, but there is a way we can connect, so it gives them that meaning to life, that shared experience, and the like.
Nilifurahia sababu nilikuwa ningali mchanga. Sasa ikawa hapana, maana walimtoa kama bado hatujaishi, nilikuwa sijalea watoto. Nikasema kweli kama walifanya, wacha pia hao nao wakufe, pia familia yao na ilie.
So I'm Dr. Elizabeth Wangari Geshimo, a clinical psychologist by training and a person who is very interested in African psychology, more specifically on indigenous systems of knowledge as well as of also treatment. So from training, of course, even when we are doing intervention, what you're trying to do is essentially to teach the client ways of managing themselves, and anything that has to do with self-management must have an element of rituals, because if you are in the basic sense, if you're to talk or to define what a ritual is, it's just a system or order of doing things that helps you to manage yourself and also to attain certain outcomes that of course are in your best interest. Now, what we have in the training is highly westernized. Nothing wrong with it, because it originates from a group of people. But even us as Africans, we have existed for thousands of years. This is how we have survived up to this point, meaning there is also a knowledge base and a ritual element to part of how we have managed to get to where we are. Now, when we look at especially the element of loss and grief, we know that it comes with pain. It comes with it comes with a certain disruption. Yet, as a people, as African people, this is how we used to manage that, and also that helped us to actually carry that kind of a loss. So, with the introduction of Western ways of coping and dealing with this aspect, of course there's quite a lot that have been lost, but we find that there's still cultures and communities that have maintained what has been going on. And what we are trying to do is to say that we have been doing something and it has been working. Now, as much as we are trying to adapt another one that was imposed on us due, of course, to our history with colonization and all that, globalization, yet we also have this other system that has been working and going on. So we are trying to show that none of this is better than the other one. Yes, this has its place, but also there is also room to also incorporate what we have been doing. So let's not discard one in a preference for another one. Yet this also has been there actually for a long period. How about these two? We see how can they go along. It's not a question of picking one over the other one, but how can these both then work along each other?
But we also have dissenting voices around this particular ritual, and the strongest dissenting voices that we picked are voices from the religious leaders, especially the Christians. We see, and in the Christian faith, we see mostly the Protestant believers. They tend to disagree with this ritual. They feel it is a way of appeasing the spirits, which then disagrees with their belief system. That's what most religious leaders that we interviewed tell us. So to them, they say revenge belongs to God.
What about burying somebody with a sword, a torch, and maybe a knife or some other drugs that are being made with traditional men and they're given to the person? Is that conflicting with your faith?
It does.
Right.
It does, because to me that's witchcraft. Yeah, you reminded me. You reminded me. What I saw one time when I was in primary many years back. A boy who died. Somebody had killed him. So it's true, he was killed because he was found dead, and he was buried with a sword. And words were spoken just the way you are asking, that don't forgive him. And they said words, they're sending the boy to fight back. So me, I don't know if the spirit of the boy came back to fight. I did not follow, but I saw it take place.
All right. And literally, Well, this is just on our self-consciousness. Do you think maybe it had powers to come back and maybe attack the families that did that to him? This is just out of curiosity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I am not sure whether it happened or not.
Okay.
Yeah, but and that's why I started by saying that's witchcraft. You know, we are propagating Christianity, and he's propagating old ways,
Traditions.
old traditions.
I see that.
Some of them which may not be relevant today. So what do you do? For example, where it's a Christian, some things should not be allowed. For example, you know, tradition is good and it has got its own bad connotation.
But when we compare this with the family and the cultural leaders are in opposition of what the religious leaders are saying, because they are saying, yes, the religious leaders are opposing these rituals, but they are not giving people a way forward, how practically healing will take place.
Wajua, ukikosa kujua mila zenu uko gizani. Mila zenu ndio utu wako. Hata wazungu wana mila zao. Kila binadamu ana mila zake. Kwa nini tuwache mila zetu na inatuhusu katika maisha yetu?
Kuna kitu inaitwa culture.
Yes.
Ndio hiyo mila. Hiyo kitu watu hawawachi. Kwa maana ukiwacha itakuwa kusambaa. Ikitoka kwa huyu, mimi nikiwawa na wanyamase wakose kunisika kitamatuni, tena mwingine atakuja kufa kwa familia. Ndio inatakikana hao mpaka waende kwa revenge. Wakifanya hivyo, hiyo maneno inafifia, inakuwa kidogo. Hata kama amekufa kwa maji, hata kama amenyongwa, mpaka kuna mila inafatungwa.
Next, we look at the aspect of allowing the dead to avenge themselves, because possibly the justice system in the physical world is not trusted, or it cannot be trusted to be as accurate as the justice system in the spirit world. That's why when they avenge by allowing the person to deal with the killers in the spirit world, they are sure that justice will be served. In the spirit world, there is no corruption, so nobody can bribe in the spirit world for the case to favor the killers. They believe in that world they are going to get justice.
Ningependa niwashukuru sana wazee, mmepatikana na mmetupatia a lot of information. Si tunasema asante sana. Muendelee vivyo hivyo, na najua tutaendelea kuwasiliana tunapoendelea kukua, si ndio? Asanteni sana.
Najua kwanza mahali mimi nimetoka ni kama mila watu walizitupa na kuna vile mnaongea hata ninakubaliana na sababu ninaona zile shida ziko sababu ya kukosa mila.
So what do we do at this point? We leave this to the individual mourners, the individual families, the people who have lost their bereaved person through this kind of death. They are the only ones who can decide whether this ritual serves them well or not. See, the ritual is serving different purposes in this community, and I will welcome you to give comments, ask questions about this ritual, and continue to engage us even in the upcoming episodes that we are continuing to share about the funerary rites of the Luyia community and other African communities that we will be bringing. Thank you so much.